you. Totally. And this one, it really packs a punch. Okay, so picture this. Tanya, single mom, working double shifts at a cafe in the city, just trying to, keep her head above water. Well, I can already feel the stress. Right. It's constant ringing cash registers, steaming coffee, then rushing to pick up the kids. It's like a never-ending cycle. I could just feel that weight, that responsibility she carries every single day. Exactly. But here's the thing. Despite all of that, Tanya manages to buy a car. Oh. And it's not just any car. It's like the symbol of her hard work, her dedication to her kids, freedom, independence, all rolled into one. Yeah, I get it. It's like a tangible representation of all her effort. Exactly. And that's what makes it so heartbreaking when this guy, Jerome, comes into the picture. The charming Oh, yeah, he's got it all. The charisma, the smooth talk, always there to lend a hand. But I bet some of our listeners are already seeing those red flags, right? I mean, it's almost too good to be true, isn't it? And it is, because as the story unfolds, you realize Jerome, well, his actions don't really match his words. Instead of being a true partner, he starts using Tanya's car, her symbol of independence, for his own, let's say, pursuits. Oh, no. I was afraid of that. Yeah, it gets worse. He's out picking up other women, using her car while she's slaving away at that cafe. It's like he's literally draining her resources, taking advantage of her kindness. Classic manipulator. It really makes you think about those early stages of a relationship, right? When you're so eager to see the best in someone, especially when you're, longing for that connection, that support. Oh, absolutely. We've all been there, right? Like wanting to believe that someone is who they say they are. Yeah, and the story, it doesn't let Tanya off the hook either. Like there are hints, whispers from the neighbors, maybe a knowing look from a friend, but she pushes those doubts aside. That denial can be so strong, can't it? Oh, it is. We've all done it, right? Hoping things will work out, that people will change. But in Tanya's case, well, that blindness leads to a truly gut-wrenching betrayal. She comes home early from work one day, and let's just say Jerome isn't exactly home alone. Oh no, that's awful. Right. It's a violation not just of her trust, but her home, everything she's worked so hard for. I can only imagine how devastating that must have been for her. It's a moment where, reality just comes crashing down. You realize you've been living a lie. But here's the amazing thing about Tanya. She doesn't fall apart. She takes charge. Good for her. You see this incredible shift. She kicks Jerome out, reclaims her car keys, that symbol of her independence, and starts to heal, to reclaim her space. It's almost like a ritual, right? Cleansing her home, her life, of his presence. It's powerful. And that's what's so inspiring about Tanya. She doesn't let this experience break her. She uses it as fuel to rebuild, to become even stronger, even wiser. That's incredible. It really makes you wonder how many of us have been in situations where we let someone chip away at our self-worth. Yeah. It's often subtle, but it can happen in any relationship, not just romantic ones. That's so true. And while I don't want to give away the ending, Tanya's story, it's not just about heartbreak and betrayal. It's about finding that courage to walk away from what's not serving you and rediscovering your own strength in the process. I love that. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Well, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is just walk away. Reclaim your power, start fresh. It does. It makes me think about all the times, in our own lives where we've had to make tough choices, even when it hurt. Have you ever felt that? Like you knew you had to step back from a situation or even a person, even though it was hard? Oh, absolutely. It's something we all struggle with at some point, I think. Yeah. But what I find so inspiring about Tanya is that she doesn't just walk away. She learns from it, becomes more discerning, more aware of those little signs of manipulation. Yeah, it's like she develops this superpower, this BS detector, right? And that's such a valuable skill, not just in romantic relationships, but in life, period. I know, right? Think about it. How many times have we been drawn in by someone's charm or their charisma, only to realize later, like, wait a minute, they weren't who they seemed to be at all? Too many times. And it's not always easy to spot those manipulators, especially when they're good at it. They prey on our kindness, our desire to help, our need for connection. It's almost like they know exactly how to push those buttons, make us feel needed, special. But true connection, true partnership, it has to be based on something more than that. Absolutely. Mutual respect, honesty, a willingness to share the load, not just take the cake. Jerome, he never even offered to help with the kids or, contribute financially. Right. It was all about what he could get, not what he could give. Exactly. It's like that saying, actions speak louder than words, right? Jerome was full of promises, but his behavior, it told a totally different story. And sometimes I think we need to pay more attention to that, those actions, those patterns, rather than getting swept up in all the sweet talk. It's like we need to develop a sixth sense for those inconsistencies, like that gap between what someone says and what they actually do. Yeah. And it's not about being cynical or distrusting everyone. It's about being discerning, about learning to trust our gut. Because sometimes our gut is trying to tell us something important, like that little voice that says, hold on a minute, something doesn't feel right here. But so often we silence it, especially if we really want something to work out. It's that attachment to the idea of something or someone. It can really blind us to those warning signs. And sometimes it takes a painful experience, like what Tanya went through, to wake us up. Right. But here's the thing, we don't have to wait for a crisis to learn those lessons. So how do we get better at recognizing those red flags before it's too late? Do we all need a Jerome in our lives? Ooh, that's a good question. I think the answer lies in self-awareness, understanding our own patterns, our vulnerabilities, and recognizing those situations where we might be more susceptible to manipulation. So it's like knowing your weak spots, those buttons that someone like Jerome could push. Maybe you're a people pleaser or you're drawn to those fixer-upper types, thinking you can change them. Exactly. It's about being honest with ourselves about why we're attracted to certain types of people. And it's also about building a strong sense of self-worth. When we value ourselves, we're less likely to tolerate disrespect or allow someone to take advantage because deep down we know we deserve better. And that leads to another important point, the importance of having a strong support system. Tanya's story shows us that even when we make mistakes, even when we feel lost and alone, there are people out there who care, who want to see us succeed. Having those people, friends, family, even professional mentors, can make such a difference. They can offer honest feedback, help us see things more clearly, and support us even when we stumble. Like a personal cheer squad, right? Reminding us of our strengths, helping us dust ourselves off when we fall. And sometimes they're the ones who can gently point out those red flags that we might be missing. Right. It's so important to have those trusted voices in our lives, the ones who can say, hey, are you sure about this? Or have you considered this other perspective? They can really help us navigate those tricky situations and make choices that are truly in our best interest. Exactly. So, Tanya's story, it's not just a cautionary tale. It's a reminder that we don't have to go through life alone. We can lean on each other, support each other, and help each other grow. And that's a powerful message, wouldn't you say? Right. It's about recognizing that we all have something to offer, something to learn, and that together we can create a more supportive and empowering community. And hopefully a community where stories like Tanya's, well, they become less common because at the end of the day, we all deserve to be in relationships that are built on trust, respect, genuine connection. I agree. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this question. Who are the people in your life that you can truly rely on? Who are those trusted voices that you can turn to for guidance and support? It's funny. Tanya's story really gets you thinking about the people you surround yourself with. Like, are they lifting you up or are they maybe without realizing it, kind of dragging you down? Yeah, it's like we all have this energy field, right? Yeah. And the people we let into that field, they can either amplify our light or they can dim it. It's so important to be mindful of where our energy is going. It's true. And sometimes it's the people closest to us, the ones we think we can trust the most, who end up being the most draining. It's not always intentional, but if you're constantly feeling depleted after spending time with someone, that might be a sign that something's off. It's like that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If those 5 people are always complaining, gossiping, or just bringing a negative vibe, it's bound to rub off on you. But the good news is we have the power to choose who we let into our inner circle. Exactly. It's about setting boundaries, being selective about who we give our time and energy to. So going back to Tanya's story, what are some of the practical takeaways you think our listeners can apply to their own lives? Like, how can we become more like Tanya, resilient, discerning, and ultimately choosing ourselves? I think one key takeaway is self-awareness. Tanya initially noticed all those red flags about Jerome because she's blinded by her desire for love and companionship. But after going through that painful experience, she starts paying more attention to her intuition. She learned to trust that inner voice, that little whisper that says, something doesn't feel right here. But it can be hard to hear that whisper sometimes, especially when we're caught up in the excitement of a new relationship or a new opportunity. Oh, for sure. So one practical tip is to just create space for reflection. Before jumping into anything head first, Take a moment, check in with yourself. Ask yourself, what are my motivations here? What are my non-negotiables? Does this person or this situation align with my values, my goals? Like hitting the pause button before slamming on the gas. And speaking of gas pedals, remember how Jerome kept taking Tanya's car? It's almost like a metaphor for how manipulators work, right? They take and take and take without giving anything back. That's such a good point. And it brings up another takeaway, the importance of setting boundaries. Tanya was so focused on being helpful, accommodating, that she didn't set clear boundaries with Jerome, and he took advantage of her generosity. So how do we get better at setting boundaries, especially with people we care about? It can be so awkward, or confrontational. It definitely takes practice. But it starts with recognizing that setting boundaries is actually an act of self-care. It's about protecting your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being. And it's not selfish, it's essential for healthy relationships. It's like putting a fence around your emotional garden, right? You decide who comes in, how long they stay, what they're allowed to do. Exactly. And it's okay to say no to requests or demands that feel draining or disrespectful. You're not obligated to give more than you're comfortable giving. And sometimes setting a boundary means walking away from a situation that's no longer serving you, even if it hurts. It's like what Tanya did with Jerome. She realized that staying in that relationship, it would only continue to hurt her, drain her. Walking away takes courage, especially when you've invested so much, your time, your emotions. But it's a powerful act of self-love. It's saying, I deserve better than this. I deserve to be treated with respect, with kindness. So as we wrap up our deep dive into pasted text, I want to leave our listeners with this. What's one small step you can take today to become more resilient, more discerning, more empowered? Maybe it's having that difficult conversation with a friend, setting a boundary with a colleague, or just taking some time for yourself to reflect on your needs, your values. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is filled with genuine connection, support, and joy. It all starts with believing in yourself, trusting your instincts, and having the courage to make choices that align with your highest good. And if Tanya can overcome betrayal and rebuild her life, you can too. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those hearts open, but those boundaries strong.